It is a fabulous-looking Tuesday outside. Unfortunately, it is colder than a witch's broomstick in Greenland. Landrum Roberts along with Pat Smith here live from Social Taco. You see what I did? Called an audible right in the middle of that one.
You sure did.
It is chilly outside, my friend.
It is. I woke up this morning. It was 14 degrees. I was like, wow.
Did you go outside, take a deep breath, just close your eyes, look up at the sky, and say, thank you, Lord?
Thermometer told me everything I needed to know.
You stayed inside?
Yeah, I was good.
You crank the fireplace up in the morning?
No, I don't. I go up to my office. I'm not fancy like you with like fireplaces in every room of your house.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. We have the one fireplace that actually works, and that's
no,
good.
I've got a heating pad.
You got a heating pad?
I got a heating pad that I put on my back when I wake up and go sit in my chair and listen to the Damian Mitchell Show with special guest Conrad Van Order every morning.
My wife on her side of the bed, she's got plug-in blankets. She's got all kinds of stuff. Like, babe, I know you're cold, but
you and I,
we're not living in Antarctica.
On occasions, we have back issues.
We do.
So I just kind of like to make sure that, I'm all good to go.
Yep.
Start the day.
Start stretching. Mm-hmm. I go through stretches before I brush my teeth. Just make sure I don't pull anything.
When you get to this age, man, you sneeze and things happen.
That's right. We got a busy show coming up today from Social Taco.
Yes, we do. Mike Griffith will be along in just a couple minutes. We'll try to track him down. Hopefully he has survived snow and ice-mageddon or whatever you want to call it over the weekend. Stephen Pearl, the head basketball coach of the Auburn Tigers, he'll join us at the bottom of the hour. Alex Scarborough at 12 noon from Bama 247. He'll give us the very latest on what the heck is going on with Charles Bediako, and it looks like Alabama is close to officially recognizing the new offensive line coach at Alabama. Rocco Miller, the bracketeer, will be along at 12:30. Dimitri Ravanos meet his normal spot at 1 o'clock. So we got a lot going on, but we do start with a little bit of breaking news yesterday afternoon on the Charles Bediako case. We found out that it had been postponed. The hearing that was supposed to take place today in Tuscaloosa, basically that hearing was going to expand and extend the TRO, the temporary restraining order, that most people believe that it was going to be extended for the rest of the season. Well, the NCAA, their attorneys can't get down here. Not sure what part of the country they're in, upper Midwest, D.C., whatever the case may be. They said, hey, we need a delay because we can't get our attorneys down there. And so then an interesting thing happened. It was being reported by Alex Scarborough from Bama 247 and some others that the attorneys for the NCAA last night, they also filed a motion in Tuscaloosa County Court asking for the recusal of Judge Jim Roberts. And this is the part that gets me. This tells you everything you need to know about 2026 in society.
I think I know what you're going to say. Go ahead.
So in their legal brief, they're citing Reddit posts questioning Roberts' impartiality and attaching news articles about Roberts' donations to the university. So we're deciding things in our courtrooms based on anonymous posters on Reddit? Are we serious?
I go to Reddit every now and then, but I wouldn't necessarily cite it for this. I thought it was interesting where they're doing everything they can to say we don't think that we're getting a fair hearing with Judge Roberts. But then the wording goes on to say, but by the way, we're not questioning your integrity.
No, they have faith in the judicial
process. As a judge, and we have faith in you,
Mm-hmm.
but we just don't have the faith in you in this particular case.
Well, they also contend, Landrum, that the court has no actual bias.
No.
Okay? I mean, we're just wanting to make sure.
Yeah. Look, we know that y'all are doing things on the up and up, but we would like to move it away from his bench. His courtroom.
So, no offense to Rodney Orr's posters on Tighter Insider, but it's like going to the message forum on Tighter Insider and starting pulling people posting stuff and then submitting it to the court as fact.
Yeah.
Like what are we doing?
Yeah.
I mean, and not to mention, and Nick Kelly had a great tweet last night because someone asked him, said, "Oh, okay, well, if they're asking him to recuse himself, is there anybody else in that Tuscaloosa court that is not an Alabama graduate?" And the answer to that is no. So where do you, NCAA, would you like to move this to Indianapolis, Indiana? Like,
I'm sure they would.
Well, I think they would love to. Now, I mean, no offense, but like, Auburn does not have a law school, correct?
They do not.
Okay. So there's a pretty good chance that if you're in the state of Alabama
No, several people went to Auburn undergrad, graduated
Sure.
from Alabama law.
Absolutely. Or those that went to UAB undergrad and graduated from Cumberland.
Yeah, that's right.
Or whatever the case may be. But it's like we're really going to go down that road of now you're trying to shop for a judge where it was, obviously accused of Alabama of finding that one particular judge that was going to be able to help you. And so now the NCAA wants to pull the whole thing out.
I think you would have to search high and low to find any judge in this particular state that does not have a quote-unquote conflict of interest.
Yeah. Mike Griffith joins us from the AJCDogNation.com. Mike, we've been talking about this Charles Bediako case, and now the NCAA, they've got a problem with a Tuscaloosa judge saying that he needs to recuse himself because he's an Alabama booster. Great times we're living in.
Yeah, when the courtroom crosses over with NCAA legislation, it's tricky, and this whole thing is tricky. When you hear Greg Byrne talk about it, and you look around the country and you see others are doing it, and you say, well, if they're doing it, why can't we do it too? And it kind of goes back to the whole secondary violation thing. Back in the day, when I covered Tennessee, and they'd say, Lane Kiffin, I remember the year he had a lot of secondary violations, and they said, well, Nick Saban has a lot of secondary violations, so we don't really care if there's violations at the end of the day. What's the point of following rules if it puts you at a disadvantage and other people are breaking them? To what degree is, up to the interpreter, but, that's kind of the way I look at this. I mean, there's other guys, the guys that have played in Europe professionally. What do we make of them? Do they provide an unfair advantage? So it's interesting because you think you got to draw the line somewhere, but it seems more and more we're not drawing any lines. So kind of the Wild West.
I do want to ask you, because I've never seen this before, and you may have, but in this original TRO that Bediako's team filed, and then the way the judge sent out the TRO, basically they're also citing that the NCAA can't touch Alabama based on potentially using an illegal player if Bediako plays and Alabama wins games. I'd never really seen that before, and I'm curious if you have, based on all the SEC issues you and I both seen in the past with the NCAA, how a judge did not do that before, basically saying the NCAA can't punish the school.
Well, that's a question of if the NCAA is, at the mercy of the judge's ruling. I mean, and this is you say a Tuscaloosa judge, right? Not a federal
That's correct.
judge. So,
right.
I mean, this is obviously to me, a lawsuit that's destined to go much higher.
Right.
I would think. But again, when we start getting judges involved in athletics, things get tricky quickly. All the way back to the 90s, when you look at the Alabama investigation, and the NCAA had some findings. I don't know if you guys remember this, but the faculty athletics representative at Alabama, I believe it was then Dr. Tom Jones, actually sued and won
Yes.
some money from the NCAA because there was no precedent for the penalty that Professor David Swank, I believe, from the University of Oklahoma, had doled out to Alabama. Now, that didn't help Alabama's recruiting restrictions with the 1995 class, the so-called Fab 14, that included Sean Alexander and Chris Samuels, among others, as they were limited to 14 scholarships. And certainly that played a role down the road. Mike Dubos' first season in 1997, those guys would have been coming to fruition. It probably had something to do with that team having a losing record, but I digress. The point is, there's not always a direct correlation between these judges ruling what ends up ultimately happening.
What do you think the discussions have been like in the commissioner's office with Greg Sankey and those he's surrounded by on a daily basis?
Boy, that's a lot of headaches. That's tough. You'd think that's tough going to work, but the reality of it is this is why you've got a guy like Greg Sankey. You've got a guy that's capable, usually 2 or 3 steps ahead. But there's only so much Greg Sankey can do here. I mean, that's what's tough, and that's why I think it kind of underscores the importance for there to be a commissioner in college football who has some power, right? You got to have influence. I mean, a title doesn't mean anything what you come up with isn't enforceable, and that's kind of what we're dealing with right now. I mean, we've got this College Sports Commission, but do they have any teeth? What can they really rule on? And that's where it all keeps coming back to the whole need for a collective bargaining agreement, and then we get into the whole topic of student athletes, becoming employees. I mean, they're paid like employees, but are they managed like employees? Is that constitutional, so to speak? And where do we draw the line between student athlete and employee? And what of it when we're talking about student athletes, and we know that the guys that are staying with extra eligibility more and more every year, it seems, don't really have any obligations to be students, if we're being honest about it. So it's a blurry line. It gets more blurry here, and you just kind of wonder, how do we get this under wraps, or do we? Is this the future of college sports right now? And it gets crazier and crazier, and what's next? What's the difference between a minor league baseball player and a major league baseball player, or a D league player, or a G league player, and a professional player, or a Euro player? Are we going to start seeing guys from the minor leagues in baseball go back to school?
Possibly.
Possibly. Yeah. I don't know. The whole line of amateurism to professional is also blurred now, right? There used to be a difference. Once you got paid, that was it. Well, now you can play at a higher level and get paid, and heck, you can get paid for playing in high school, can't you? Aren't there NIL deals available for high school players? So,
yeah.
Yeah. So what's next? It's quite a situation that kind of gives us all headaches as we try to wrap our brains around it and come up with solutions and ideas, because nothing seems to be enforceable these days.
So, staying on the Greg Sankey front, I do want to ask you about this, because as Dabo Sweeney goes scorched earth on Friday, he brings up the fact that he had a conversation with Jim Phillips, and then that conversation turned into a conversation with Greg Sankey over the allegations that Pete Golding and Ole Miss blatantly tampering with a student athlete there at Clemson, who ultimately ended up at Ole Miss. You just mentioned it. Like, what can Greg Sankey, or what power do any of these commissioners have now? Now, back in the old days, you and I both know that Roy Kramer or Mike Slive would pick up the phone and they would call a coach. I mean, I remember distinctly Gene Stallings and Terry Bowden going at it privately, and the commissioner had to kind of step in and tell them both to calm the you-know-what down. But these commissioners nowadays, do they have any power at all where they could step in and tell a coach to calm down? Because obviously Lane Kiffin's running rampant, and now Pete Golding.
Yeah, I remember last year at the spring meetings, Commissioner Sankey talked about that. He said, okay, you guys are telling us that you want these rules, but you got to be willing to follow them. Everybody wants rules until it's time to follow them, right? And that's kind of where we're at. Now, I will say this, last year the SEC had a rule with the second portal window that a player couldn't transfer within the conference in the second portal window. Remember that?
I do.
And the idea behind that was to prevent this sort of tampering. That was what the coaches agreed upon, and I'm pretty sure that everybody kind of went with that. But ironically, all that did was hurt the SEC, because there were still guys that transferred, but they transferred out of the league. So, what good did that do that, Nico Imamiava went out to UCLA when maybe there would have been an SEC school that would have benefited from him? I'm not saying he would have led an SEC team to a playoff or a playoff win, but, the fact that the rule was exclusive to the SEC actually hurt the league. In the long run, it prevented the tampering. The coaches got what they wanted. They were so worried about each other, and now that everybody has money, you better be worried about the Big Ten, as we've seen with the kind of players that they've brought in. And looks like, Ohio State's, dipped into the SEC once again, effectively.
Mike, we've all kind of digested, and sometimes it's hard to keep up with, but in the SEC overall, as you look at the portal additions, subtractions, is there one particular team that stands out for the better or for the worse?
Not really. I mean, I guess I'm like everyone else, kind of watching what happens at LSU, and it looks like they've done a pretty decent job. And you mix that with Lane Kiffin, so that's why I guess that would be of particular note as a new coach, big haul, lots of pressure. Certainly there'll be a magnifying glass on LSU and what happens with Lane Kiffin. And if we don't pay attention, Lane will find a way to make us pay attention with his X account and comments in interesting ways. That's what you're going to get with Lane Kiffin. And, for better or worse, depending on how you look at it. I mean, some people like Lane, some people don't like Lane, but everybody talks about Lane. And, there's an old saying about that, just spell my name right. So
yeah.
I guess I'm like everyone else. I'm kind of looking at LSU. I think Florida's probably done a really nice job, and I'm hearing really positive things out of Gainesville. I talked with Coach Spurrier yesterday, and there's a lot of optimism about the Florida Gators. And, how far off are they really? I mean, geez, if DJ Lagway picks up a couple yards on fourth down, they probably beat Georgia. That's your SEC champion. So how far off is Florida? Is there a lot of momentum there? I think Billy Napier probably brought in some pretty decent talent. So I'll kind of keep an eye on them. And then, of course, you got a pretty major rebuild at Alabama. That's pretty interesting. I think Kalen DeBoer is a really good coach, but boy, the way the Crimson Tide ended the season, how far do they got to go? What's that culture like? Are they on the verge of a Florida State flip? I wouldn't think so, but I wouldn't have thought that about Florida State either. Or could they be back and win the SEC championship?
So you're saying that Alabama could be 3-9 next year? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that. But you saw what happened to the Florida State culture after they had some issues with transfers. I'm just saying that we've seen mighty programs fall, and heck, Florida State beat Alabama last year, right? So
yes, they did.
Who knows? Auburn, they got a new coach. I don't know. Should we be excited about this guy? I'm not sure. I don't know that was the most impressive hire, and I know they lost a couple decent players. One's at Georgia, one's at Texas. But they also have some pretty good NIL money. So we could keep bouncing around the league. Everybody's got their story. I guess I'd just say it's all kind of interesting. At the end of the day, my guess is that there'll still be a lot of parity in the SEC and more drama ahead.
And we'll enjoy it as much as ever. Mike Griffith, you can find his work at dognation.com and the AJC. Mike, we always appreciate
there is one thing that I want to add here, because I saw and I've got a lot of friends that are columnists and write interesting things, and someone said that this concept that if college football goes to the NIL and loses its amateurism model, that people wouldn't like it as much. And someone said, well, that's not true, because look at the TV ratings. Well, the TV ratings are a reflection of more teams being involved in the playoffs. So that's the only point I want to make. I got to grab this other call, guys. I love doing the show. I can't wait to talk to you next week.
Thanks,
we
Mike.
love you.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Have a great week. That is Mike Griffith. He joins us on the Higginbotham Hotline, just like all of our guests do. You deserve solutions that are built for you. Higginbotham is your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services.
Some of the takeaways, what Mike told us, coming up at the bottom of the hour. Auburn head men's basketball coach Stephen Pearl. We continue live from Social Taco on a cold Tuesday right here on Jocks.
Always appreciate Mike Griffith from the AJC, DogNation.com, joining us here on the program. Coach Stephen Pearl, the head basketball coach of the Auburn Tigers. They got a big game coming up at home tomorrow night. He'll be joining the program at the bottom of the hour.
Well, flu season is here, so make your home healthier with Trane's Clean Effects Home Air Cleaner. It removes up to 99.9% of airborne particles, including those that cause virus. It's 100 times more effective than standard air filters and 8 times more effective than HEPA room filters. So go and find a dealer near you at Trane.com.
All right, so a couple of headlines. If you're just now tuning in, Charles Bediako's hearing was supposed to be today. The NCAA could not get an attorney down here for the hearing, so they have asked for a continuance. That was granted, but meanwhile, the NCAA has also filed a motion last night in Tuscaloosa County Court asking for the recusal of Judge Jim Roberts, citing Reddit posts questioning Roberts' impartiality and attaching news articles about Roberts' donations to the University of Alabama. So we'll see what happens there. Earlier this morning, staying on the legal front, Duke and quarterback Darian Mensah, they have reached an agreement that formalizes his transfer from the institution. His agency has announced Mensah and the Blue Devils have been in settlement talks for the last 5 days, and with the settlement, Duke has dropped its ongoing lawsuit to prevent Mensah from enrolling at another school. Miami was not involved in the settlement, according to published reports. So this was all between Mensah and Duke University. Everyone believes, Landrum, that he will find his way to South Beach.
Unfortunately for Duke, you were planning on Darian Mensah being your quarterback next year. I wonder what Manny Diaz decides to do. See, in a situation like this, I think that you should have a special 1 or 3 day portal window extended for a school to get screwed like Duke just got screwed. And I know it's hard to have pity on Duke. We are talking about Duke. When I think elitist universities, Duke is right there at the top. But I feel for the guys on that roster in that locker room. You're counting on a guy that led you to a pretty good season.
ACC
Bailing
championship.
last minute. Now who's going to throw the football?
First time since 1989 that Duke had won an ACC championship. Last time it happened, Steve Spurrier was the head coach of the Duke Blue Devils. And so now Mensah will probably end up at Miami. And for all you ACC football schedule fans out there, Duke is at Miami on November 14th.
That'll be fun.
Well, at least it's not in Durham, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, that would be something. I do find it interesting how multiple people said Miami was not involved in this settlement. So we all know how this works out.
Yes, we do.
That Miami says, all right, Mensah, you take care of your business. Even if you have to pay Duke $4 million.
We're going to make up that $4 million plus some.
Yes, we'll take care of you. But you have to get out the door officially from Duke. You're the one that's going to have to write the check to Duke, or but his representation is Young Money APAA Sports. That's who represents Mr. Mensah. Young Money APAA Sports. So somebody's writing Duke a check. It's just not Miami. It might have something to do with some type of ACC bylaw. I don't know. But it's getting done. Duke has released a statement. They say, we are committed to fulfilling all promises and obligations Duke makes to our student athletes when we enter into a contractual agreement with them, and we expect the same in return.
I'm just here in La La Land thinking about Darian Mensah with all the millions he's going to have to spend at maybe his final season of playing college quarterback in Coral Gables.
We definitely believe it will be more than Carson Beck made last year.
Well, I want Carson Beck. I want the tell-all. Just Carson. You got there. What would that have been last?
You just want to know about the Cavender twins.
No, not the Cavender twins. I'm not obsessed with the Cavender twins like some people. like
Larry from Homewood.
I wasn't going to say his name.
Well, he's raising his hand.
He is raising his hand. He was off camera. But, no, what is that like? Because I've talked to someone who was on scholarship at Miami in the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And they described the scene, and I know that was a different time, but I think it'd be pretty entertaining to go down there and play a season of football.
Oh, you mean the days of 2 Live Crew?
Yeah. But the stories that I heard from this former player, it was insane.
Thank you for laughing, Larry.
Yeah. Larry got it.
Yeah, Larry got it. The older audience got it. 2 Live Crew was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Conrad, do a search on 2 Live. Do you know who 2 Live Crew is? Conrad?
I've heard that name before.
Okay. Well,
They're the ones that wear the blue face paint, right? I'm kidding.
No, that is not them.
No.
You just need to.
That's the Blue Man Group.
Just do a search during a commercial break. You and Molly do a search on 2 Live Crew, and then we'll obviously get your reactions later.
See, I feel like I'm gonna like this though.
You probably
Have
will.
you ever heard of Run DMC?
Well, yeah.
I have.
Okay.
Oh,
Molly will find 2 Live Crew vile. Conrad
All
will
right, hold
probably
on.
start putting it on his,
Let me do a quick Google search.
Well,
his
the second
iPod
song that
Shuffle.
comes up here, that's certainly a name for a song.
Molly's laughing.
What are these songs?
You just need to list them during a break.
Filth we used to put in our ears.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's
In
sad
some
because I'm
cases.
On our
absolutely going to
Walkmans.
enjoy those music.
Yeah.
that music.
Landry,
Yeah, I
Landry
know
would have
you
it on
will.
his Walkman on the bus. Wouldn't you?
No, I would have the stereo over shoulder.
Oh, you would have the boom box on your shoulder?
Yep.
Yeah. 2 Live Crew.
On my skateboard.
You can get suspended if someone at school heard you play that.
Yeah.
That was bad stuff.
You can't even get into 3 words
Mm-mm.
without getting expelled.
Yeah. See, I like educating Conrad and Molly
Yeah, you listen to that, you learn some new words.
on what developed us as young people.
That's right.
Into the the great adults we are today.
Yep. Stephen Pearl, Auburn basketball coach, next on 3 Man Front. Welcome back in. 3 Man Front live from Social Taco here in Homewood. Cold outside, but we already have some of our great Jocks listeners joining us here in the Taco Terrace. Joining us, Auburn men's head basketball coach Stephen Pearl. He joins us on the Higginbotham Hotline. Good morning, Coach. How are you?
Morning, fellas. Appreciate you having me.
Hey, thanks for joining us. All right, just describe it. I know that you said that you didn't mention it to the team, the fact that Auburn basketball, men's basketball, not won in Gainesville since 1996. You didn't think that it was relevant. What was their reaction when you delivered the news that they had done something no other Auburn team had done in 30 years?
I wouldn't say it's not relevant, but we've given that message like the 6 other times we went down there and it never worked. So I'm like, hell, why don't we switch it up a little bit and just act like it's not even a thing? And I mean, I didn't even say anything to him about it after the game either. I just talked about the things that we did in the game, the things that we executed well, and why we ultimately were able to win the game against who I think is the best team in our league on the road. That's progress, and that's something that this team 3 weeks ago wouldn't have been able to do. So, while we as coaches understand the significance, because one, that's probably the best Florida team that we've played at Florida since we've been at Auburn, and two, to not have wanted a place in 30 years, that's those guys kind of making their own history and having their own stamp in Auburn basketball. So, proud of the effort, but we obviously have our hands full tomorrow night with a really good Texas club. So that's the beauty and the beast about this league is, if you lose a game, you can wash it away pretty quickly and get ready for the next one. If you win a game, you better not think about it too long because, you got an unbelievable opponent coming up a couple nights later.
Well, one thing's for sure, Coach, what your team has been able to do, you've outscored every SEC opponent in the paint this season. Just talk about your low post play and how important that's been on your success so far.
Yeah, I think it's 2 parts. One, our 5 men are finally healthy. Murph and Phillips have both kind of battled in specifically, and they're both finally at a place now where they're, back as close to 100% as possible, and it's kind of showed. They're both shooting, over 64%, I think, from 2 this year, and they're shooting a pretty good percentage from the foul line. And, they've been able to add an additional post presence. And then, you add on top of that, we have guys like Sebastian Williams-Adams and obviously Keyshawn Hall, Elijah Freeman, Kevin Overton, guys that can kind of get to the rim and finish through contact. And, Todd Pettiford obviously made 2 huge shots in the Florida game. So we have some guys this year that can get by their man and create some advantage for themselves. And when we're able to play off 2 feet and play under control and use shot fakes, good results happen. We either score the basket or we get fouled and we get to the foul line. So it's something that's been really good for us, and it's something that we got to continue to try and do.
Coach Stephen Pearl joining us on 3-Man Front and joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. Last year, Coach, such a veteran-led team. You've got veterans now that came in via the transfer portal this year, but where is your leadership? Who are those leaders that have emerged on this squad?
Yeah, I mean, the only veterans we really have, we have 3 upperclassmen, Keyshawn Hall, Kevin Overton, and Keyshawn Murphy. The rest of our guys are freshmen and sophomores. We have 10 underclassmen on this roster this year, so we're a very young team. But, Murph, having played in the SEC for a couple of years, has obviously got a strong voice in that locker room. Keyshawn Hall having played at a high major level and obviously having a lot of success offensively at that level. Kevin Overton came from a program that done a lot of winning, from Drake and Texas Tech, and then Tahad being our returners. Those are the 4 guys that our guys really lean into, as far as, their voice and their presence and their leadership. So, it's a different guy every night, but we really look at those 4 guys as guys that, our guys will listen to and our guys will lean on, when we get into tough situations. And there's no better example than, we had an 18-point lead. It's tied, with 7 minutes left, and we get in that huddle, and those 4 guys were just super calm, and, they communicated well with one another. And, we just kept the main thing, and we had to get on to the next play. And we went on, a 4-0 run after that to, put ourselves in a position to potentially finish the game. So those guys did a great job of staying composed and staying under control, and we found a way to win a great game.
And speaking of that, Coach, and I've heard you speak on this throughout the season so far, and watching this Auburn team, whether you're up by 18 or down by 18, it looks like the team still has that same mental makeup. And I guess the identity of this basketball team, that's one that makes you very proud to know that whether you guys are behind or not, the game is far from over, and you see the way the guys react to you and that they're never out of the game. That has to make you feel pretty good about the identity of this basketball team.
Yeah, we learned from some tough ones early in the year. I thought we lost our composure in the Michigan and the Arizona games early in the year. We kind of let what they do affect our play, and we let our bad defense or our bad offense affect our defense. And I think since then we haven't had a lot of that. And these guys have done a good job, so far up to this point of just learning to give some grace throughout the game, because we're all going to make mistakes, and just trying to find ways to get to the next play quicker, good or bad. Like you kind of alluded to, we put ourselves in some tough situations, like at Georgia, Texas A&M at home, and at Missouri, where we're down, double digits, and we got to climb all the way back. Vice versa, we're up double digits against South Carolina, Ole Miss, and Florida, and they all cut it to a one-possession game. We're then able to rally and push those things back out. So, we've done it both ways. So, like you said, when the Tigers are up 10 or down 10, you never know what the hell is going to happen in those last couple minutes.
Coach, I do want to know, and I know that you've probably been asked this a million times, but I do want to ask your leadership style. You've been on that bench. You've been in that locker room over this successful tenure that your dad had as the head coach, but now taking over. Have you been able to identify your leadership style, how you lead this team, as opposed to maybe how Bruce did it?
I mean, I'd be a fool to not have taken a lot of the things that he did and kind of implement them into the things that I do. But, yeah, we're definitely different in some ways, and I think my players would be able to speak to that better than anybody. But, we have – it's different when you're a first-year head coach versus a guy that had 30 years under his belt as a head coach. You got to lead in different ways. And, some people may think I'm a little bit more of a disciplinarian, but to that, saying that when you're first getting started, you kind of have to set the tone, and you have to have some non-negotiables, and, or else they won't respect you. And I think that's something that we're a little different on. I think earlier in his career, I was young, so I wasn't sure, but I'm pretty sure he was the same way. And as he got older, he became a little more patient and a little more, gave a little more grace in certain areas. But overall, as far as when we're losing, when you lose games, you gotta love on them a little bit. But when you're winning games, that's when you kind of come down harder on them and really just kind of point out the things that we got to get better at. So I think I learned that from him, and it's something that, I think has led to us being able to not let the low times get too low. And obviously we're trying to right now not let the high times let us get too high.
Coach Stephen Pearl joins us here on Three Man Front. I've got to ask you about the depth of this league this year. We got spoiled last year. We had 14 of 16 teams make the NCAA basketball tournament. If you look at the net rankings this morning, you've got 8 teams in the top 32. Just kind of give us your opinion on the depth of this league this year. Not asking for a prediction of how many teams will make the big dance, but just kind of compare and contrast the depth of the league this year compared to last.
Yeah, I mean, it's just as deep. The quality at the top probably isn't as strong because, I mean, obviously you had us, you had Tennessee, you had us, you had Florida, you had Tennessee, you had Alabama, Kentucky, probably all top 10-ish type teams, right? This year we don't have that as much. But if you look at, the best team, who I think is Florida, and, if you want to take whoever's at the bottom of the league right now, there's not a huge margin of separation between any of those teams. So on any given night, we've seen it countless nights, night in and night out. Anyone can go anywhere and win a game. We can go to Florida and somehow beat them. Texas, who we got to play tomorrow, can go to Alabama and beat Alabama. You know what I mean? It's just that hasn't always been the case. And now there's just so much, there's just not a lot of separation, like there has been in the past from the top and the bottom. So it's going to be chaos every single night. Somebody's going to lose that you don't think should lose, and somebody's going to get upset. So for us, it's all about just staying consistent in our routine and just continue to try and get better each and every week.
You mentioned it, Coach. You got a really good team coming into Neville Arena tomorrow night for the earlier tip there in Auburn, the Texas Longhorns. Give us a brief scout or what we can expect from Texas.
Well, I think Florida's the best team. I think Texas is the most dangerous team in our league. You have, Modest, who the big fella down low, who is just a force down there. He leads the country in fouls drawn in 40 minutes a game. He just does a great job of posting up and creating contact and getting to the foul line. And then they have 3 guards, you guys, and you guys saw this probably in the Alabama game, Jordan Pope, Dalen Swain, and Tremont Mark, that at any point throughout the game can just take the game over and go win you a basketball game. and that makes them incredibly dangerous. And they're a team that plays with a ton of confidence. They have as much D1 experience as anyone in college basketball. So offensively, they're a juggernaut. So for us, like as a team that's struggled defensively throughout the year, we've really got to be on top of everything that we're doing and understand their personnel in order to kind of keep them at bay. And then we got to do a good job at executing our offense. And, we can't let success change us. We've won 4 out of 5, beaten some pretty good teams, had 2 big road wins last week. If we let that get to our heads and we start, listening to any outside noise, Texas could come in here and kick our ass. So we had a good day of practice yesterday. We have to have a great day of practice today. And, this is the team. Texas is a team that, they lead our league in ranked wins this year, you guys. So, like, they step up to the moment. They blew out Georgia. They blew out Vanderbilt. Obviously, they played really well at Alabama. So it's a team that, has a tremendous amount of upside, and a team that, is incredibly dangerous. So we got to play our best basketball if we want to win the game.
Spoken like a veteran head coach Stephen Pearl, the Auburn Tigers tomorrow versus Texas. Neville Arena, I'm sure the jungle will be rocking, and I'm sure you invite all those students to get there early and be loud as they typically are, Coach.
No doubt, no doubt. Going to be great playing in front of the jungle again, and can't wait to play in front of our fans. Should be an awesome environment.
Coach, thanks for taking time to visit with us, and take care of Ted. We think he's a good person. Hopefully he's
That's
doing well.
That's the best. I'll tell him you guys said hi. Pat Landry, thanks you guys. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Stephen. Stephen Pearl, head basketball coach, Auburn University, and Pat joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline.
It was a great interview with Stephen Pearl as he kind of laid out Auburn's success so far, and just an impressive young coach. You've seen what he's been able to do, because you kind of had a feeling at the beginning of the season, Landrum, that maybe this basketball team, I'm not saying they were going to be on the ropes, but it definitely was not the product that you've seen over the last 3 weeks, because they have definitely turned the corner.
Yeah, and early in the season, and they were tested, and you saw the 1-point loss that they had here in Birmingham to Houston. You thought, all right, this team's starting to find its identity, and then they go and they play that gauntlet, that murderer's
And don't
row.
forget about the crazy end of the Texas A&M game.
The crazy
you know
end of the Texas A&M game. You force overtime in Athens. This is a team that I think right now he feels really good about where they are, because it does seem like you've seen maybe the light bulb or everybody kind of buy in the last couple of games. And they're going to have that, because they have deficiencies and guys that they didn't have last year. You don't have a Dylan Cardwell and a Janai Broom. When you think about some of the other guys, the Denver Jones, just veteran leadership, especially late in games. They've got some of that, but it looks like Stephen Pearl's well aware of what he's got, and Auburn's making progress.
It was interesting because one of my questions, I pointed out that 8 of the top 32 teams in the net rankings this morning reside in the Southeastern Conference. The team that is number 9 in the rankings from an SEC perspective is Texas, and that's the team that he said that he believed was the most dangerous. And according to the net, they're the 9th best team in the Southeastern Conference. But Stephen Pearl is just pointing out the depth of the league. It might not be top-heavy, but the rest of the league, because of their depth, it's going to be kind of difficult for a lot of teams, especially in the tournament.
That's something that he does get from his dad, because I thought Bruce Pearl was always very, very candid. He was always really good as a basketball player. You read his quotes or you listened to him after a game. He would give you the lowdown of the league. He'd give you a really quick scan of the league and who he thought maybe had some warts, maybe wasn't where, like you're mentioning and you're referencing, some of those rankings have them. But Stephen Pearl, I think he's doing a good job in a really tough league at a tough time to do it.
Yeah. All right, when we come back on three-man front, the Buffalo Bills have just named their next head coach. Who could it be? We'll tell you next on three-man front. It is 10:50. Welcome back into Three-Man Front. We're live at Social Taco. Be here until 2 o'clock. Already some folks making their way up here on the Taco Terrace, and you can too. And before we went to break, some breaking news, Conrad, coming out of the National Football League, as Josh Allen now has a new head coach.
That is correct, Pat, and somebody that had been a popular name in some college circles as well. We've talked about this guy a lot. Obviously, a lot of people remember him from what he did in 2019, winning a national championship with the LSU Tigers. But the Bills are making their offensive coordinator, Joe Brady, the next head coach of the Buffalo Bills. So they are finalizing a 5-year deal to keep him in Buffalo. So Josh Allen, a familiar name that will now get a big-time opportunity. And I guess we now see why maybe he wasn't as interested in some of those college openings, as he felt like an NFL job was waiting for him. And
well, hallelujah.
He gets that.
Hallelujah. We do not have to talk about Joe Brady being up for a job or interviewing or going back to college. He's got a gig. Let him coach 5 years. Awesome.
We got Joe Brady and Matt Campbell both taken care of in the same coaching cycle. That's remarkable.
So a former wide receiver at William & Mary is now the head coach of the Buffalo Bills.
God bless America.
Yes, only in America.
Conrad, you left out somebody else that we found. Oh, who was it that found a job? That was always up for. Oh, it was Jason Candle at Toledo.
You're right.
He got a UConn job.
Yep.
This is the year of those coaches.
Well, don't forget about Eric Bieniemy. That was always up for a job. Who's now back at Kansas City as the offensive coordinator.
The final piece, guys, to this puzzle is Monken and Army. If we can get Monken and Army to leave,
I thought you meant his brother going to Army to be the offensive coordinator for his brother.
You know what? I think that counts.
Okay. I'm like you. I'm so tired of hearing Joe Brady stuff.
And it's nothing against Joe Brady.
No, nothing
it's
against
just
him
the copy and paste of every single NFL writer anytime a job comes open.
I mean, 2019, he happened to be at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And then after that, he was at the Carolina Panthers.
Yep.
Disappeared.
With Matt Rule.
Yeah. And to my knowledge, since he's been with Buffalo, have I missed Buffalo making the Super Bowl?
You didn't miss it, Pat.
Okay. I just want to make sure, because the Joe Brady folks out there will make you think like they just, hired the greatest coach in the history of the world.
And Brian Daboll's just sitting there twiddling his thumbs.
I was making sure I didn't fall asleep for a while and miss the Buffalo Bills making the Super Bowl.
I feel light as a feather now that Joe Brady's got a job.
So you fire the head coach, and now you give it to the guy that's been calling the plays that could not get you to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes
It was all McDermott's fault. He was holding him back.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Okay, good luck with that.
Well,
Pat, not a big fan of the hire.
I could care less, to be completely honest with you, but I'm like
the
Landrum.
honesty.
I've heard since 2019 that Joe Brady, was up for every freaking college job in the world. I'm like, hire him.
Hire him.
Bring him on.
Yes.
LSU, hire him.
Yep.
Please go down to the Bayou.
Does this not seem to you like hey, Josh Allen, who do you want the next coach to be? I want it to be Joe Brady. That I would be shocked to find out.
Do you want Phillip Rivers or Joe Brady? Well, I'll take Joe Brady because he's been here.
Well, Phillip's going to come for my job, so let's go with Joe.
Yeah.
Gotta love the NFL.
You do. How about our friends at Noto Roofing? You got to love dealing directly with owners like Sammy and Matt Noto. Great guys, grew up here in Metro Birmingham. I've known Matt since he was playing high school football. Just a great family and folks you can trust. They're going to work alongside your insurance company, will assist in the claims process if you need them to do that. Chris, one of their talented professionals, been in the roofing business almost 3 decades. He's going to walk the house. He's going to be very honest and open. He's not going to tell you need a new roof. If you don't need the new roof, they're going to do the ventilation inspections. They offer free inspections to all Jocks 94.5 listeners. Also, they can offer financing to help with those payments. Great company. They will hold your hand if you need them to throughout the whole process and make sure that your roof is functioning properly, and they're not going to put a new roof on if you don't need one. Just great folks. They're going to warranty their work. It's Noto Roofing, a name you can trust. N-O-T-O roofing.com. That's notoroofing.com. Or you can give them a call, 205-848-2299. Always tell them Landrum from Jock sent you.
So this is cool. I mean, he gets a 5-year deal at Buffalo. He's 36 years old. So Lane Kiffin flames out in 2 to 3 years like Brian Kelly did. Then Joe Brady's ready to go.
All the pieces are set.
Yeah. Coach and waiting.
Coach and waiting in Buffalo.
Yes. Very much so. We've already had 2 guests on in the first hour. We are wide open in the 11 o'clock hour. We'd love to hear from you. We'll get to your text messages. So many of you are chiming in on the Stephen Pearl interview. We'd love to hear from you. 1-800-239-WJOX. That's the phone number. The Courtesy GMC text line, 205-834-9450. In the 12 noon hour, we'll talk to Alex Scarborough from Bama 247. Rocco Miller, the bracketeer, at 12:30 on his early bracketology. And also Demetri Ravenos. A jam-packed show here at Social Taco. Come on by and see us. We'll be here in 2, Jocks.